Greetings, adventurers, travelers, and fellow keepers of the lake. Welcome to the character creation video in the Mutation series. So, as a sheriff, my only purpose here is to teach you how to create your own mutant. In this world, everybody has mutated into monster body part Lego genetic dead ends, and this is their normal life. So, for them to see a normal human, it's preposterous. So, as normal humans, let's try to make one of the mutants and see how that works. Let me just get things out of the way a bit. So first of all, if you want an in-depth guide on how to make such a creature, go to S.T.A.L.K.E.R Games. Just find this video right here, and that's the video that goes into a more in-depth character creation thing. Here I will just fly through everything. Basically the idea here is to have everything you need to create the mutant, but you need to own the book and you need to go and read it. This is just something that you would watch and then be ready to do it in as little time as possible. So for us, character creation lasted about 20 minutes the first time we did it. After that, when one of the players unfortunately got shotgunned to the stomach by an almost incorporeal being, well, we made the second character in about half the time. Let's find the character creation place. Use the wrench to secure your book. This is something that is mandatory. Now, making your mutant. The first thing we do is ancestry. So what is ancestry? Well, that is basically the genetical debt that you got from your ancestors. You can thank them, you can hate them, but they give you something. Maybe it's a buff, maybe it's a debuff. One thing I want to add is write all your buffs and debuffs on a little piece of paper like this. So at the end you don't need to go and redo your character sheet. When that's out of the way, the second thing you do is mutations, and as you see here, and I will put it on the screen like a sample, there is a bunch of mutations. There are mutations that give you the ability to see in the dark, there are mutations that give you antlers or horns, there are mutations that literally give you like the ability to fly, some wings, and there are mutations that make you very skinny and poor in your body. And here, this is how easy it is to roll up a mutant. Basically you roll the 66s.
Execute Order 66.
But yeah, you roll 2d6s and you treat them like you would a d100 in other games. So I rolled an 11. Well, that's not a demonstration I wanted. Here, I rolled 42. You go and in the book you find 42, and 42 is bone plates. Your skin is protected by articulating pattern, a crocodile. What pattern shows up on yours? And a bunch of these mutations have these questions that you can think about and make yourself look even more unique, and just let the childish imagination flow. Also, you can make your own mutations. Even the book says if there is not a mutation that you like here, you can always like write a couple, add them, roll different kinds of dice, or just ask DM to like pick and choose these. If you want it to be faster, just pick and choose by rolling the dice. If you are okay with just going through all of them and choosing, well, yeah, do that. Then we need to talk about aspects. Each aspect starts at +5, and whenever you improve it, that's actually decreasing this number. And I had a situation where one of my players said, well, I have 5, isn't like +1 better? No, actually you roll over the number to succeed. So if this is a 4, you have better luck at succeeding. And your ancestries, mutations, paths, all this stuff will influence these numbers. That's why I said you should always write it on a piece of paper so that at the end you can modify everything. Okay, so we have those derived stats that I have talked about in the last game, and those are your cool HP, your guard, and your carry. So there is actually a table in the book somewhere around here that says for your aspects how much grit, guard, and carry you have. So this is something that's derived, and of course mutations and all those other things influence this. When a creature rolls to do you harm, your guard subtracts the number of dice from their pool that they're rolling with. Your carry is how much you can carry, and your grit is your HP basically, and also a type of currency that you can use for a bunch of interesting things. You can see here one thing that is not explained well is H6. That means that you have an aspect, whenever you roll, it needs to be a 6 to pass, and it is hard. So I think at that point you roll with -1 dice. So for each aspect you usually roll 3 dice. If it's an H, you dump 1 die altogether and roll 2 dice, and it must be a 6 on one of those for that aspect to succeed. Basically, they want to say it's hard. Let's talk about fate. This is the next thing, and fates are nothing more than your saves. So when looking at the character sheet, this is what it looks like. Your aspects go here, your derived stats, grit and guard go here, your fates go here. So fates go there. They are mobility, toxins, will, and death, and they are also modified by ancestry and mutations and path and all that stuff. These 3 modify everything on your character sheet. One thing I need to mention on the character sheet is your armor. That is something that you get from gear, and that is something that you get from some of the mutations. So even if it is not like strictly said here in the steps, don't worry about it. When you see armor, just add it there, and all the damage that is coming your way will be decreased by that amount. That's it. Okay, let's look what is next. Now you choose your path, and path is basically just like a class. You have black thumbs, doctors, gunfighters, headcases, players, and searchers. Now we can have a look at each of these fairly quickly. Yeah, here they are. Couple of pages afterwards. Paths. Black thumb, basically a mechanic. You're good at mechanic stuff, and you choose one of the talents here, and it says how much, what gear you have, like some starting gear, how much cash you have, which skills you have, and how many skills you should choose from the skill list, how it modifies your fates, and all that stuff. The doc is basically a healer. Still, he can do harm with his gun as any other class, but he can heal. He has some other talents, that sort of thing. Also, you will get cash, skills, all that stuff. Gunfighter, self-explanatory, I won't dwell on that. Headcase is kind of like a psychic mage type of character. I think they are a bit overpowered, so tread carefully, and I would probably avoid them for the first game, just so you're sure what you're doing before you introduce another one. Even though a lot of these rules seem pretty simple, when you start playing, a lot of questions arise, and it's not good to have a lot of questions arise during play. If you can like dumb it down and not use the headcase in the first game, that would be amazing. Also, avoid any mutations that have those. Just stick to like snake tail mutations and that sort of thing. The player, basically a bard. I don't know what to add to that. Basically a bard. A searcher, basically a ranger for this barren wasteland. And this is a good place to say that you have your path talents and open talents. You will see that most of these say if you want, you can choose one of the below, or you can choose one of the open talents, and those are here. So keep that in mind while making your character. The next thing is skills. As you saw here, you have like how many skills you should choose. You go to the skills page, you find the skill you want. And what are skills? They're just buffs for your aspects. Nothing more than that. If you look at the skills, you will see that each of those skills is under a category of an aspect. So it just buffs the aspect it is under. And it works as like your skill, if you're trained, is +1 die to your pool. If you're not trained, it's -2 dice. And we said if you hit a bullseye 6 times, your skill rank goes up. So how does that work? Well, you see here, you have skills, you have little circles, you circle them. When you've circled all of them, your skill goes up. Can your skill go up multiple times? Well, yeah, here it says that each time you roll 6 bullseyes, your skill goes up. So keep track of that here. So now the best part. Now you start shopping for some gear. What is gear? Well, some tools, some chalk, some more tools, some bam guns, some pencils, and maybe you're this type of guy or girl, so that's an option. Or you want just a radioactive scorpion. Whichever is it, my friend, you're going shopping, and that's what's important. But what if you don't want to shop? What if none of these is your thing and you just want to use the tools at hand to do some crafting? Well, what you need, some form of a blueprint, okay, something like this, and then you ask a question, is it easy or hard, and how many parts do you need, and how much time does it take. This is something that you figure out with your DM, and yeah, when you have looked at the parts, you should consider which type it is and what amount. And in terms of types, there is not a lot of types and they are very broad, so here's the list on the screen. See with your DM which ones are fine and how much you need, and from that you will devise a challenge. The challenge is how many successes you need to have to actually craft something. So as we said, there are some actions that are sustained actions. So for them to actually work, you need to find multiple successful dice. And how many successful dice? Well, that is the challenge number. And the challenge number is usually calculated like this. You take 3 plus number of parts that you need. When you get that number, half of that is how many hours you need to complete this. Unfortunately, yeah, we're talking about hours. That means you cannot do this in combat. This is something that you do when you're safe, when you're in the city, when you have the tools and everything. So keep that in mind. I don't think you need to be in the city, but at least you need to be in like a shelter. Maybe you have your own workshop there. You need to have the proper resources. And yeah, you can also repair things. It is a flat 3 plus the number of parts that need to be replaced, and that is your challenge. So if I want to repair these handcuffs, if they are utterly broken, I need 3 parts to repair this, and also I need flat 3. So that is 6. I need 6 successes to repair this. Ta-da! Now I don't think I mentioned, but what successes? Well, crafting, mechanics, electrics, some of those skills that can actually be used for that certain type of crafting that you're doing. And the good thing is that repairing can be done in combat. Well, replacing a part or two can be done in combat, but you cannot use that in the same round. I needed to clean up, it was getting very messy from all the crafting we were doing. But yeah, that is something that also comes into play. There are a bunch of modifiers and you as a DM can also play around with modifiers. Is it the workbench too messy? Is it raining outside? Are you on top of a train that is on top of 2 trucks that are falling down a cliff, attacked by radioactive scorpion things? Well, yeah, I will put some modifiers just as guidelines on the screen, but yeah, you can always come up with even more. Then there is another thing that I won't go into that far, and that is implants. Basically, the idea is that you can implant some gear into yourself, and if you have a doctor or a mechanic, it works with more or less wounds. I will put some of the rulings for that on the screen, and the rest you can read the book. I also don't advise you start with these right away, so for your first sessions, you don't need this. Speaking of things that I don't think you need in your first session, it is psychokinesis, which is like short PSK or psych or psych or something like that. But yeah, psychokinesis, which is your magic in this world and how it functions. Well, basically you spend grit to gain powers like with talents, but unlike talents, you can spend more than 1 grit. The more grit you spend, the more power you gain, and you need to announce how many grit points are you giving to this power. And fun fact, it will always work. Well, it is not a question of if it will work or not. You have to test your will to see if you have control over it. So you do the will save, and if you pass, ta-da, you spent your grit and everything works fine. But if you fail, oh, then you need to roll on the table to see what mishaps happen. I will put the table on the screen, and of course, the bigger the failure, the bigger the side effects, so keep that in mind. You sure don't want those snake eyes happening. Yes, so some powers are sustained actions, which kind of means that you need to like keep the power running each turn. That costs you 1 action. No additional grit spent, you just spend grit when you activated the power for the first time. After that, you just sustain it each round. And I don't think you need to roll for that, I'm not sure. That is something that I hope you will write in the comments. I don't think you need to activate it each time, because you cast it once, you paid the price of grit, you don't need to like do it every time. I think the only thing that you need to do is probably not to be distracted, so no snakes and tools and explosions around you, or I would have players roll will or something. So how do you get more spells, or as we call them here, psychic powers, psychokinesis, psycho. This is hard for me to pronounce, so I'll just call it powers. Powers. Powers! Okay, so how do you gain them? Well, you want to gain PSK. No, my friend. PSK gain you. It is so unpredictable and so chaotic that you can't even choose your powers. It is something that you roll for. You roll 1d6 twice and you get the power from the book. So you go to psychokinesis, you see here, and then you roll and you look at this table. And that's it, you get one of the powers here. If it's the same power, you can add a +1 to its effect. If it's a flat effect, like a +1 or +2, you just add +1 on top of that. If it's like a die, for example, gains 1d something, you now bump it to gains 2d something. So that's how you do. But you can also reroll and get like a different power. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need to know in terms of making your own mutant. Now I hope you're capable of filling your character sheet, and just so you know, here, wounds is something that you get in combat. Radiation is something that we will talk about probably in the GM part of the video. It's not something that you as a player should concern yourselves with. And yeah, your materials for organic, plastic, machine or other go here into your inventory. Your inventory is limited by how many things you can fit in here, and that is like something that you kind of rule with the DM. You find some common ground and go with that. So yeah, the character sheet is pretty simple, character creation is pretty simple. You have so many options, and we had our first game, it was wonderful. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and as always, keep on going, keep on loving, keep on being creative, play more D&D, and I will see you in the next one.
Farewell, keepers.